What's up, everybody? We have a special guest across the table virtually from us again today, and he's been on the podcast once before, and it was a phenomenally interesting episode. In fact, I've checked the analytics. It is in our top 10, and so it just proves how interesting the one and only Jerry Miculek is to talk to. And, man, we talked last time about how it is. We got a little bit into the mind of Jerry Miculek and how it is that you shoot so darn fast and actually hit what you're shooting at most of the time, too. So we got to point out that detail as well. And then we talked about a lot of other really interesting things that were just sort of, I don't know, any other way to explain it other than just Jerry being Jerry and telling us awesome Jerry stories. So we kind of thought that would end up being a little bit of the theme for today's podcast. Jerry, we just had... You know, you sparked a lot of curiosity in the last one in our heads. We just have so many more questions to ask that could be related to anything, to be honest with you.
Okay.
This is a deep dive. You know, there's few people you can talk about where they really are the man, the myth, the legend. Jerry's all those things.
Yes. We just got done talking about the fact that, during this time, everybody's buying up a lot of guns, and you were explaining to us that you were just pulling shotguns, some old ones that you were going to sell off just out of the corners of your shop and of your house. It seemed they just appear.
Yeah, I had a bunch of inventory I didn't even realize I had. I'm not a guy to sell what I win. I usually sit on them for a long time, and these have been accumulating from 3-gun matches for 15, 20 years, and I haven't used them, so I figured the time is right, the price is right.
That's right.
So pass them on to another good American. So,
oh yeah. Now, when you,
that just sounds like civic duty.
So I got to ask. Here's a question. I didn't even have it on my list of questions to ask. But so when you're selling one of these, some of these shotguns, are you going into a shop? Or are you doing it on like Arms List or something like that? Private sale.
It's online.
Oh,
yeah.
Online. Okay. I was gonna say because in my head I'm picturing some other local Louisiana what do you guys call yourselves down there? Louisiana?
That's close. There's other names, but I'll use that one.
I was picturing somebody, maybe who's never had a firearm before, but they're thinking to themselves, man, stuff's getting pretty hairy out here. And they find this ad for a shotgun for sale online, and they just say, hey, I'll take it, whatever. They go over to this guy's house, and turns out it's Jerry Miculek, but still, because they haven't really been in the industry before, they're not really totally sure. And I wonder what it would be like to have somebody who's just thinking of kind of getting their first firearm, because stuff's a little bit crazy, walking into Jerry Miculek's shop and and being like, wow, so this is what all those gun guys are like.
I think they'd leave feeling undergunned.
That's for sure. Sir, could you maybe give me a few pointers on how to shoot this? Sure.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
I've had an interesting, I was working at a trade show one time, and a gentleman came by and he said, I'm having trouble shooting a revolver. I said, well, let me, and I was trying to show him a technique. He said, no, I just took a class. That's not how you do it. Carry on, brother.
Carry on.
He just took a class.
Right.
So,
right. I'm having trouble. I just took a class, so I don't want to hear any of your input, but I'm having trouble.
Right.
Just so you know.
Right. I'm having trouble with everything I learned. What would you know?
Jerry.
That was fun.
Jerry, one of the things, so speaking of, the fact that, for the most part, I would say a lot of people out there know who you are, and certainly some may come up and say, well, this guy didn't teach me the wrong way to shoot a revolver, but most people kind of know who you are, and I've seen lately on your Instagram page that you essentially have you've developed a bit of a logo. And I love the logo, actually. It's awesome because it's very recognizable. And it's funny. It's a silhouette of your face, and it's got the iconic mustache and shooting glasses. In fact, we see it right now on video in front of us. And I had to wonder the story behind the mustache and both the shooting glasses because they're very iconic piece. If I ever saw you without either of them, I'd be shocked.
Well, the glasses, I've been wearing these Decot glasses for 20-something years now in competition. And the reason behind it, there's a reason just pretty much on everything I do. And Louisiana is 100% humidity everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
So if the glasses aren't far from your face, they'll soon fog up. You find yourself in a stage of fire and you're running around. Next thing you know, you can't see through your glasses. So these glasses are far enough away where they've hardly ever fogged up. Plus, you can change the lens out. If I wanted to shoot a metallic sighted handgun, I can just reach up here and pop this lens out and put in the correction to shoot a sight on a handgun. So it gives me the flexibility of being who I am. And I just kind of like them. They fit and they work. And I don't change unless something is better. And I haven't found it yet. So that's where I'm at.
Right on.
We should have known that it wasn't just a fashion statement.
Well, I figured it wasn't. I am curious.
One thing you notice about me to start off with, there's nothing fashion about me. It's all price point. So if it's price point, it works. That's where I'm at. Put me in, boss.
That's
Other
a good.
than that, I don't really care about anything. So
That's a good sweet spot to be in. You actually change. You said the correction though, depending on the sights you're using. So is that like? Is that because when you're shooting iron sights, you're focused more close up than far?
Yes, exactly. You know, when your eyes age, I don't care who you are, you get to that point where you need correction to see and read. So I was lucky enough to go into an optometrist friend of mine. And I could bring my handgun into the office, and he'd put the diopters in there and find me the right setting for the front sight. And that's another point that people don't really realize. A lot of guys, when they do that, they want to see the front sight so clear that when you correct for that much correction, the target disappears.
Oh.
So there's a compromise. You don't really need to see that front sight all that clear. You want a good reference, but you also want to have target identification. And the key thing is when you do this kind of a shooting with a different lens, you have to shoot with both eyes open.
Okay.
This one sees the target and this one sees the sight.
Got
so
it.
if you your left eye, you'll have somewhat of a sight picture, but no target at all. So you have to shoot with both eyes open, and it works out really good if you do that.
Oh, so is there like a different correction in your right lens versus your left lens then when you're shooting this?
Yeah, that's another interesting. Interesting when you put it on. It's like a 2.2x magnifier, so it's like looking through a bifocal all the time. So when you first flip it on, it's like you're walking in circles. I'll have to put it on 20 or 30 minutes before I actually shoot.
Yeah.
Where my eyes can take a set and it doesn't look like I'm walking sideways. And that's just the part about being 65 years old. You know, it's you have to live with that kind of a downgrade of your vision. And
Sure.
Another thing I always found interesting is like when you shoot a revolver and you have speed loaders on your belt and you look down with your bifocals and you see that line and you see half of a big speed loader and half of a little one. Which one do you grab?
Oh, yeah. Grab the big one. I don't know. That's what I got.
So it's kind of when you wear correction, just the reality of life. You just got to put up with it and move on.
Sure. So if you're at a match and you see Jerry and it's just when he popped in that new correction and you're wondering why he always turns right or turns left or whichever direction.
I'm kind of like that wildebeest with that worm in his ear.
Yeah.
I haven't expired yet, but I do go in circles. But still up.
That's all right. Totally understandable, though.
Learning curve.
Yeah, I bet. So now the story. So we've heard a little bit about the glasses. Now the story about the mustache, Jerry. You've got a powerful mustache. And I will point that out. It's excellent.
And it's been there for quite some time.
And it has been. There's even if you scroll way back on your Instagram page, almost back to the beginning of your Instagram page, there's a picture of you many years back. Same mustache to a T. How do you keep it so? I've never seen it differ.
Well, it hasn't got totally white like the rest of it yet, but I've had that hairy lip since the 70s, you know. It was kind of like the grade back in the 70s with bell bottoms and all that stuff, so I just kept it. It looks silly without it now, so it's just like you cut your eyelashes off, your eyebrows off or something, so I'll just leave it there.
Absolutely. If I were you, I would. I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine you without it.
Well, it's just like, the glasses. It was working then, and it's certainly working now.
I'll say. Absolutely. Man, so like I said, this is kind of, we're going to be shooting from the hip. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shoot from the hip and hope you don't miss. That's what we're going to be doing today, but I'll throw out another one on my list here. Mark, I'm sure you've got some too.
I've got a couple, but I like yours so much, Jim.
I'll let you jump in here as well, but I'll throw another one out. So Jerry, if you didn't become a professional shooter, what would you have done? Do you have any secret, like, secondary hobbies that you got?
Well, when I was younger and wasn't shooting full time, we did a lot of 4-wheel drive stuff. I had a 72 Ford Bronco, a half cab.
Yeah.
And I had rebuilt that thing a couple of times. I actually had the back end of it rotted off. And I found another body in New Orleans, took that back end off and welded them together with coat hangers. And
it's for the wire?
Huh?
Is that your welding wire?
You realize South Louisiana, you have to learn to adapt and overcome. Had a lot of coat hangers, had a acetylene torch, had time on my hands. It actually makes a beautiful weld. We built airboats, put trucks together with it. So it's a very flexible product. People throw them away. I'm going, hey, don't throw that away. You can weld with that. You'd be surprised how many mufflers and headers and automobiles we used to patch up with a coat hanger. And it actually does a really quality weld considering what you're working with. So
that's amazing. Do you find now, I know my wife has some coat hangers that are silver, some that are gold. Is there certain coat hanger like alloys that you got to try and...
I think the gold ones are the best.
Oh, right. Of course, they're gold.
Of course. It works really good. That old Bronco, we took it apart and it had it hanging in trees. We painted it a couple of times, changed all the gears out, transmission, overhauled the engine. There wasn't a part on that truck I didn't put my hands into, and I built a drive shaft for the back of it. So we did all kind of projects with that Bronco.
That's
that was back
fantastic.
I actually had 6 tires on it back in the day when we first started.
6 tires.
Yeah, I made a set of rims for the back. We had made duals for the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I modified a rim, set it on the inside, and made a spool that attached to the axle and had another 900 by 16. So I was running 900 by 16 military tires on it. I had 4 in the back and 2 in the front. It's kind of cool.
Jerry, you're the coolest person I've ever met.
All held together by coat hangers. Jim's on question 3. We've talked about cars now on question 3. So the
best part is I didn't even bring it up this time.
Well, I know you didn't, but I guarantee the podcast is going to be just derailed. You're not even get to any of your questions. We're just talking about cars the whole time.
We will. But I do. You should enjoy this as well. You're a big fan of the old 60s and 70s 4x4s. You like your International Scout. You like you like the Ford Broncos a lot. You know, of course. Then you got your old Blazers and stuff like that. And so did you guys? You guys must have done a lot of mudding down there in Louisiana. Am I right?
Paint fields and pipelines. Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds like just an awesome good time.
Cool. We had that old Ford came with a factory PTO winch.
Oh, where did that come out of then? Did it come out of the front or the back? Front. Okay.
Yeah. Made a real heavy duty bumper for the front, and it was a fun vehicle. We got in a lot of trouble with it, you know.
Heck yeah.
What about you? I see you laughing there, Jerry. Let's maybe talk about a time you got in trouble with it.
Yeah.
Well, we were in an overhaul process, and we didn't have any seats in it, and the windshield, the doors were off. We're sitting with 5-gallon buckets, straight headers, trying it down to the state. You know, it was kind of 60 miles an hour. And then one time we pulled the airboat out of the boat landing, and that boat had a 540 cubic inch Continental 6-cylinder on it, and of course the boat helps push a truck out. We got out, and I told my little brother, I said, he pushed me home at 60 miles an hour with that airboat. Going down the road, had the engine, had it new. It was kind of cool. It was a truck. I thought that was kind of an enterprising deal, but that was fun.
That's some more of that Louisiana ingenuity right there.
Oh my gosh! Absolutely.
We'll just push the vehicle with the airboat. I mean, it makes sense.
It was kind of neat. Guys would pass you on the left lane, looking at you like, "What you doing, brother?" I'm just going down the road.
I tell you, the great thing about this country is that we're all Americans, right? We're all part of the United States, and yet up here in Wisconsin, you would never ever see that. But there are very unique things that you would see in Wisconsin you'd never, ever see in Louisiana. And it's likewise in many other states. You can point anybody out at any point if they're doing something weird and you say, I bet they're from wherever, if you're familiar with it. But that I feel like, Jerry, and I've only been to Louisiana once, I think. But I feel like that's pretty quintessential Louisiana.
It could be.
I don't like to paint with broad brushes here, but if I imagine if I ever see a 4-wheel drive vehicle being pushed down the road at a high rate of speed by an airboat, I'm gonna say that guy's from Louisiana.
Could be.
I'm like, oh God, it's Jerry. Actually,
Right.
I know that guy.
It could be a sign. Well, that could have been a sign.
Oh yeah, man. But those airboats are impressive machines, though, too. I mean, those had to have been super fun to rip around on. Do you ever do? Well, I can't imagine there's much you probably didn't do with an airboat, but I did. They are fun to watch. They're cool. They're cool to watch.
You ever shoot from an airboat?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I figured.
Unquestionably. But all of the welding Broncos and working on them with coat hangers and all that couldn't quite top the excitement level of shooting, though.
No, shooting is a lot of fun. When we were coming up, we always hunted or something. Had a rifle or 22 or a shotgun in your hands. And when the season was closed, it was quiet. So you had to make noise doing something. So
Sure.
Found competition, and we applied the same strategy of like building those trucks and stuff. We did everything. Cast bullets, reloaded, made bullet lubricant. Matter of fact, some of the first 38 special reloads we made, I think we had 35 cents a box and invested in them.
Wow.
So,
That's pretty good.
60 cents a 100, $7 a 1,000. So
you can't even hardly get like one round of anything for that these days.
No.
What we did was we would go to the gun shops and stuff and found powder on the shelf nobody would buy. And we'd buy it up and scrap lead and just make up a load and go shoot and have fun.
Where do you get scrap lead from?
Just about anywhere. A tire weight. The sheet lead. Like for roofs and stuff. It used to all the plumbing on a roof used to be lead.
Oh,
that was
okay.
kind of common. Tire weights. You go to a tire shop. A guy they would just throw them in a dump anyway. So you pick them up. You kind of make a routine of pick up. You leave them a clean bucket. And you come back, get your tire weights, and but that was the main source of lead was tire weights.
And you don't have at no point in your life have you had like a sixth finger start growing out of your hand from all that lead?
I keep them trimmed.
Okay. When you clip your fingernails, you just kind of I'll clip off that sixth one real quick.
I don't know.
Lead is a big problem with the competitive shooter. That's something you have to monitor and keep a close guard on.
Absolutely.
Especially when you shoot a lot. If you're shooting 60,000 rounds a year, or you own a lot of ranges, you're doing classes, I take great care in lead and handling lead. So.
Oh, totally. It really is something, and it's when we built this indoor range here that we have at Vortex, and now, we're running classes out of it, and there's a lot of shooting in there. The amount of HVAC that needs to go into an indoor range in order to keep that stuff out of your lungs, the amount of technology in the bullet trap, that goes into keeping all that from coming back to you as the shooter. They got sticky pads on the floor so you're not tracking it out in your shoes. You're washing your hands with a special soap that's designed to get the lead off. It's really, and then you think about, too, then you go to some outdoor ranges and you see somebody going around picking up brass in their ball cap and then putting the ball cap back on their head, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, one of the things I do at range, even though it's an outdoor range, one of my routines is before I shoot, I put barrier cream on my hands, and that helps the lead absorption to the skin. That's a routine, and I also have a 6 horsepower gasoline fan. Even though I'm outside, I'll have positive airflow running on me all the time.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome. I was just about to ask what are some things that you do. So
I can actually I can control the environment in a berm like 30 by 40 yards wide with that one fan.
Yeah.
And if the wind's not blowing right, I don't shoot. I'll come back and go do something else, wait for the wind to get right. And then, of course, the fan in Louisiana does two things. Keeps all the lead and all that other stuff coming out of a gun away from me. And it also provides me with some cooling.
Oh, yeah.
At
Much
2 o'clock,
needed.
It'll get so hot you just cannot shoot. Without that fan, I wouldn't be able to compete and train the way I do in Louisiana. So we used to take the old airboat before we had these little portable fans. We'd take the airboat out and let it idle. Of course, you got to at 50, at 500 RPM.
I really find you can use an airboat for just about anything.
It really seems to be the Swiss Army vehicle.
You can cook eggs on the header. make you a little laughter.
It's perfect. You know, you might as well just live on an airboat. It provides cooling, which your house does. You can cook eggs on it, which you can do in your house. And it's got a floor, and you can go on water whenever you want.
I imagine you could even fish from it, Jim.
I'd imagine. It sounds that's pretty awesome. Jerry, when you talk about getting into down there, I love how much DIY stuff you guys did. I mean, everything from, you know, the 4x4 stuff, but then casting bullets, reloading all your ammunition and stuff. And is that like I don't want to say these days you don't hear as many people doing that. I mean, there's plenty of people doing a lot of DIY stuff. And you go on YouTube and you can learn how to do anything DIY, it seems. But at that time, were you guys all just kind of like, oh, this seems like it's cool, let's figure it out? Was there some sort of guru in your local town that was telling you how to do it? Were you reading books? Was it, how are you getting this knowledge? Because this is all such cool stuff.
Well, that was before YouTube, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So you couldn't Google it.
Exactly.
No Google. So I always thought, since I was wise enough to do this, I've always tried to hang around the old guys. So there was an old mechanic that lived in Lutcher, Louisiana. We'd go hang out with him when we had spare time. He was a welder, taught us how to acetylene weld. And so just South Louisiana in general is a do-it-yourself kind of an environment.
Mm-hmm.
The average guy, and that's one thing about South Louisiana, a lot of shipyards, a lot of industry. So you have a lot of professional people there, craft people.
Sure.
Mechanics, welders, you know, and all this. The shooting part, we just kind of learned hands-on. Might read a book a little bit. Your friends come over, you kind of just start doing stuff, and you just take off with it and you do it. Most everything we did was cost-effective because we didn't have a lot of money to pay anybody else to do it.
Sure.
You know, you want to work on a boat, you're in a hurry, you want to build a boat, well, you get some plywood, let's start cutting it out and glue this thing, do this, bend it, fiberglass, let's go float it, see what happens. Kind of a deal, you know.
So it sounds like a lot of trial and error, and honestly, I feel lucky to be talking to you right now, Jerry.
I don't want to ask this question, but I am also curious, how many of your friends growing up were lost in the process?
Just a few. They were slightly crippled, but they'll get over it in about 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, we all made it to our age now, so we were pretty lucky. There's a point of no return on everything, you know. So you kind of modulate the wild part of it.
Sure.
And you'll be all right.
You just try something that you think won't kill you at first, and then, you know, from there you can start souping it
and
up.
You can go with it. Yeah. There's some close calls with everything.
Oh, yeah.
Waking up in the morning is dangerous. You know, people want to be safe all the time. Life is not safe. But you have to know the limit on anything you do. The firearms part, I've always been extremely careful around a firearm.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the things that I really pride myself on, as I've been around them for so many years, and every time you pick one up, to me, it's like picking up a rattlesnake. I want to know where the head is. Most important thing when you pick up a snake is knowing where those fangs are. Same thing when you pick up a gun. I want to know everything about it, the chamber condition, wherever the muzzle pointing. I can laugh and joke about it, but when I get on the range, safety comes up. And all the hunting and fishing and stuff we did with firearms and all the applications, riding in airboats and four-wheel drive trucks, handling that firearm was paramount to me all the time, because I wanted to do it the next day. I didn't want to lose a piece of my body to someone else. So, So the firearm part, we always took extremely serious. That's why I'm still here. Still going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things, too, where you think to yourself, why not take it seriously? You know, I mean, there's plenty of stuff that you can do, that you can joke around with, that you can be goofy. You know, you can kind of be that way, a little bit more careless. There's plenty of stuff you can do that with. I don't know, like when I'm whipping up tacos at night, get a little careless with the cumin and the chili seasoning. It's not going to kill you.
No.
You know, or when you're doing something else with your buddies, you know, just kind of throw in the bag toss. But when you're shooting guns, it's like, okay, well, let's all try to make it through this to the end. And, you know, and it's still a lot of fun, even when you're being perfectly safe.
Different set of consequences.
Absolutely.
No doubt. And I think, you know, I know even in life, you know, you see maybe some inexperienced people who are just getting into firearms and don't quite grasp. It's not that they're not trying to be not careful, but it's just, I guess that level of cognizance of like watching your muzzle and like just always having to be aware of that, right? But then on the flip side, I've seen people who have a lot of experience with firearms get lackadaisical at the same time. So I think it's definitely, it happens on both ends of the spectrum. And I'm guilty of it probably at times myself, right? And didn't even know it perhaps. But man, you bring up a good point, Jerry. I mean, and there's a lot of folks just getting into guns right now. That would benefit from probably some, help from you, Jerry.
That's one of the things. Like we'd go duck hunting in a swamp. We might have to walk from the highway maybe a mile, 3/4 of a mile. So when we got out of the truck, we loaded up. The guy on point had a hot chamber. The guy behind him, just out of courtesy, would load up, but he always break the breech open. He had to take it out of battery where it won't fire. So if you're walking behind him and you were the trip, because you're walking in a swamp, I mean, that's just like endless possibilities of trip hazard.
Oh, yeah.
So you had a push pull, you had a shotgun, you open your breech. Should you fall, all you're going to do is get dirty. You won't injure the guy in front of you by an AD or something. So you gotta know who you're hunting with, and the people I hunted with were just as safety conscious as I was, and we always try to apply that. You work. Say you got 3 people in a 10-foot aluminum boat, going down the canal. So you got muzzles everywhere. So your muzzle direction awareness has to be paramount. The guy on point might be loaded, the guy behind him has his breech open, and the guy in the back is not even loaded. Yep. And that just kind of went without saying. And we'd always ask the other guy behind us, what he's doing, and talk it over. So you don't find yourself in a situation where you shoot the other guy's gun barrel or you do something silly, even worse than that. So a lot of hunting accidents happen because you don't actually discuss the possibilities of what can happen.
Yeah. Reminds me of the old Wisconsin deer drive.
Yep.
There's plenty of instances where that can be perfectly safe. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's aware of other people in the area. And there's plenty of cases where you're hoping everybody makes it home safe somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are times when things can get a little loose, and I mean, that's a huge point to bring up as far as not to get into like some sort of safety, whatever, I don't know, like coming down on folks like you need to be safe, we're the authority on safety, but I mean, you bring up some good points. I was hunting with a buddy of mine, good friend, very little hunting experience, and I think as you get more experienced, you kind of take for granted some of the things that or some of the things that you just do. Like you always watch your muzzle, you keep your finger off the trigger. These are things you just do, right? And he just didn't have that experience, and we were hunting with shotguns. He had a shotgun, and I was in front of him, and all of a sudden his gun went off in close proximity behind me, and I just assumed like, oh my God, what'd you see? And I look back, and his mouth is agape. His eyes are as big as saucer plates, and the shotgun is on the ground.
Oh, gosh.
And I go, what happened? He goes, I was seeing if the safety was on. I'm like, well, there's a different way to do that.
That's the thing you might want to discuss before you get in the field.
that was a good lesson for me. That was like, okay, yeah, like you said, know who you're hunting with, right? And that was probably it was probably my responsibility to teach him. I didn't really know that I needed to teach him that, but yeah.
Sometimes you take stuff for granted. I know I've even taken stuff for granted in the past too, where it's like you hand somebody a wrench and you're like, hey, would you mind getting that bolt? And they're like, and you're like, oh, we're going to have to go through quick how to use a wrench, or whatever. So
thanks for not using my name, Jim.
It's okay.
Probably one of the big things I've seen with gun handling is everybody has a different procedure. Say if you and I are in the woods or we're out on a range and I hand you a firearm and say, what do you think of this? I would always hand it to you empty. I wouldn't hand you a loaded firearm unless I notified you before. And some people would do just the opposite. So you assume, once you have an assumption of anything, you're out of your comfort zone and you're not in your routine. And once you introduce a different routine and you accept it without verifying it, I handed you a gun, it's going to be empty unless I'm telling you, hey, look, Fred, this thing is hot. I'm going to hand it to you. You want to shoot? I would never hand you a hot gun. Some guys totally different.
Yeah.
Hand it to you hot. I had a friend of mine had an accidental discharge. A guy handed him a loaded 12 gauge with the safety off. Ooh. And I'm hunting with this guy all my life. He's number one. I'd be with him without even thinking about his safety routine. So a guy introduced into him a shotgun hot on fire, and which we never would do. And he touched the trigger. It was in a safe direction, but he touched the trigger and it fired. And the guy said, what are you doing? So he got introduced into a cycle he wasn't accustomed to. So that's, always pull a bolt back, always, take a visual.
Sure enough. Yeah.
And we never do that to one another. We've hunted all our life, and you got introduced into a different routine, and that's what happened. Nobody got hurt. There was a learning curve.
Well, that's good.
Just anyway, everybody has a routine, and when you get out of it, that's when things happen.
Yeah. Well, safety is very important for sure. I mean, obviously, it's number one. You can't have fun shooting or enjoy the sport or anything like that unless you are also being safe. But Jerry, one thing, and we'll switch back into a little bit of the hip fire questions here for you, though. But it actually does relate a little bit to the
safety's paramount. Now let's get into hip fire.
Safety's paramount. Anyway, better
back to hip firing.
So speaking though of a little bit of the safety stuff, and then also this DIY nature of your roots. I was watching a video on your YouTube channel the other day of this bullet trap that you have, this homemade bullet trap that you shoot into at your range, and it's on wheels. It's you can move it around. It's very well thought out. It even has like the way that the bullets enter into it, like a giant funnel. It actually kind of looks like something they throw trees into when they want to grind them up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of it, you've got where the bullets essentially spin around and then drop, and then you're left with all the lead. You got a clean out port there. I mean, everything, and you've built it yourself, right?
Yep, built it in my garage. Yep.
That is pretty cool. What was the inspiration behind building that? Like, I mean, at your range, I've seen there's berms and stuff. How come you want to shoot into something like that instead of shooting into just a regular berm? Yeah.
Well, you have to realize back in the 70s when I started shooting, it wasn't until 1990 that I ever received $1 or a nickel sponsorship for anything.
Okay.
So this is all on my own nickel. And at one time, lead was actually hard to get. There's been shortages, through the years on different things, one or the other. But lead one time was very short. It was hard to get, and it was expensive. If I'm going to shoot 1,000 rounds into a berm, just learning trigger technique, well, that was 32 pounds of lead gone.
Just gone right into the hill.
So if I shoot into the trap, I can recycle it, get most of it back, cast it back into another bullet. But the other thing, too, it made for a safe spot for me to practice. When I didn't have my own private range, I was kind of at the mercy of where I was. And in different areas that I practiced, there was no berm to shoot into. So this provided me a safe backdrop. So when I wanted to do rapid fire or stuff, I could not only save what I was shooting, but I could also have a safe area to shoot.
Sure.
It's like a twofold. And we made it for scrap. A guy gave me some pieces of sheet iron, and I had an old trailer, and that's a Ford pickup truck, straight axle in the front. I wanted to keep pins up, and had some old shock absorbers laying around, fiber from that Bronco. Anyway, I built that thing. I think I had $1.68 in it. It was all scrap. The paint was off an old automobile we had painted at one time or the other. So there was nothing involved in it other than my time it took to make it. So I engineered it and made it. So pretty good project.
It's impressive. If you haven't seen it, if those listening out there on YouTube, you got to go check it out on Jerry's channel. How have you not shot through it yet? I mean, or have you shot through it?
Well, I had a scab of patch on the back.
Okay, I think I remember maybe seeing that. Yeah.
I probably shot 1 million rounds into it. So I just cleaned it out yesterday. Matter of fact, took about 80 pounds of lead out of it.
Holy mackerel!
Doing a lot of rapid fire shotgun stuff on it. So yeah, it's recycled a lot of lead.
That is actually pretty cool. It is. I just always find it super fun seeing that kind of stuff. Like whenever people make stuff themselves and having less than $2 into the thing, and the thing looks like, it looks well used at this point, but it looks like something you could have gotten, like, I don't know, some really renowned, backdrop manufacturer or something would be making this thing. Why wouldn't they want to? You can move it around anywhere. You can set up a mobile range anywhere you want, shoot your pistol into it or whatever.
I can tell you an interesting story. You want to hear an interesting story about a bullet trap?
Oh yeah.
Always.
You got to. I built like 5 of these things. I had some friends that were giving me material, so I bought them I built them a bullet trap.
Okay.
And one of my friends, he would always keep a piece of cardboard on the front. And he came back from a shooting exercise and thunderstorm like in South Louisiana every other day. It caught the trailer out in the open, and it blew the cardboard off anyway. So next morning he gets up to go in his shop. He sees his old cat sleeping in the bullet trap. So he goes, So anyway, he got his trap. He picked it up, put a piece of cardboard on it. About a week later, he goes in the yard. His old house cat is flipping around in the yard, can't stand up. Lead poisoning.
No kidding.
An old Persian cat, long-haired cat.
Sure.
It lay down at lead, and in one dose, it had lead poisoning to the point where it couldn't stand up. So he brought it to the local vet, a friend of his, and he said, "Look, I think the cat got lead poisoning." He said, "No, never heard of it." Anyway, checked the lead level. The vet got really excited. This cat should be dead. And he said, "I tell you what, I'm going to do a treatment on the cat. Won't charge you anything. I just want to document it." Brought the cat back from near death, and that thing lived to be like 16 years old.
Whoa, kidding me!
The whole story about that cat was he had a high dose of lead, like they killed him. Brought him back. The vet worked with him, rehabbed him, lived a long life. It was kind of
that's pretty incredible.
Kind of interesting story. I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, I mean, I think it shows. I guess it's a good example of, how a person should be conscious of, how much lead they come into contact with,
Oh, yeah.
And, it's not, I guess the most evil, I'm not like anti-lead ammunition, right? But like I said, with a lot of things, you don't want to crash your car, I guess, either when you drive down the road, right? So just take proper precautions.
Yeah, yeah. It is amazing how at one point people just didn't really know about that, I mean, I think back to, and I think to when my dad talks about being in middle school and they used to give the kids mercury in their hand to play with.
Right.
And they'd be like, "Oh, look at it. Look at how it pulls up in your hand all funny. It looks like it's from outer space." Can you imagine now? Some teacher being like, "Okay, everybody, hold out your hands. We're going to put some mercury in your hands."
A couple of interesting tidbits, factoids. The Japanese geisha ladies with the white.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lead oxide paint.
Ooh,
oh,
that's why very few of them ever lived to be 30 years old.
Oh my goodness!
So when you research lead and the problems associated with it through the centuries, it's been a lot of misuse applications. It was that was on your skin. I mean, absorption through your face has to be just astonishingly high rate.
Yikes!
Just like asbestos, the Wizard of Oz, that snow you saw, asbestos.
Oh boy.
Check that out. That's pretty interesting.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah. Be careful. Be careful around all that lead.
Back in the old days, if you're standing, you're good.
Yeah.
But you don't know for how long.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I know I've bit down on more lead sinkers than I care to think about at this point in time.
Oh, yeah, that's all right. Just block that part of your memory out if it hasn't already been naturally blocked out by the lead poisoning. Marco, what do you got? What do you got over there? Send one of yours.
So
I've been hip shooting a bunch of mine.
So I got a couple here. Not as many good ones as Jim has, but right now as stuff's a little weird right now. And so here's a question I have. If stuff got weirder and you needed to bug out, Jerry, I know you're an expert shooter and you're a heck of a hunter. What is your one gun that you take with you, survival rifle style? You're like, hey, this is it. This is what I'm bringing with me. From squirrels to self-defense, this is the one. When I go, it's coming with.
That would be a 12-inch pump.
Look at that. I had a feeling he would say that.
Well, you can do anything with it. I've shot lead balls, round balls out of them. So if you wanted to hunt big game, if you were down on your luck and you had to do your own whatever, you can make up a zillion different loads for a shotgun. It's a short range. One thing I don't like about a shotgun, the ammunition is heavy and it's bulky.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But when you say survival over self-protection, it can do dual role, but nothing can really do what a shotgun can do over a broad spectrum of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't like to say that, but that's just a fact.
Well,
you can do anything with it.
When you've got Jerry's abilities too, I mean, you can literally find some lead somewhere on an old house and make projectiles. You can probably coat hanger weld on some long range apparatus onto it too. And I mean,
we used to give you an idea. We used to take 9mm cast bullets and shoot 4 of them out of a 12 gauge, 2 up, 2 down.
Whoa!
Wait, what?
How does that? Do you just blunderbuss style it, where you just shove them down there with some powder?
Well, you load them wad when you load the ammo. When you're talking about flexibility, it might not be the best, but within 15, 20 yards, you wouldn't want to catch a 9mm round coming at you sideways.
Nope.
So you can do a lot of things with a 12 gauge. It's such a flexible cartridge, especially when you take the hand loading it. You can do a lot with it. So
The 9mm 4-leaf clover.
give you an idea. Back when I was unsponsored, we used to make our own lead shot.
Sure.
So we've got had a drip maker, a drip shot maker. We used to make our own shot. So you can actually make your own shot, make your own buckshot. You can make your own slugs. You can do wadding just about with anything. You can actually reuse shotgun wads if you were desperate enough.
Wow.
So if you can find some kind of propellant to put in there in a primer, you can do something with it.
That'll do. Although I gotta say, the thing is that if I were Jerry, I don't think that I would bug out. I'd bug in, because I mean, look at his backdrop right now. His backdrop is like more ammunition than I've ever even seen in my life.
That's a good point, Jim.
That's the odds and ends stuff that gets accumulated from life.
Right. That's just the odds and ends. I mean, let's be honest.
There's actually some pretty interesting stuff back there if you're a gun person.
You got some old cartridges or something like that behind you that they don't make anymore, or what kind of stuff is back there? It's the ultimate backdrop.
I've got some military 45 ball from 1917 that was made with the small pistol primer. That's before they converted to the large pistol.
Okay.
I've got some Frankfurt Arsenal 30 caliber bolt tail, 171 grain bolt tail. I think it was 1917.
Wow.
Ammo. I've got 9 3x74, 375 H&H, 460, 458, 43 Spanish, 8mm. Just if you think of a caliber, it's probably got a loaded round back there or some bullets or bullet molds to make it. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of stuff.
Ryan McInerney would be falling out of his chair right now, and I want to understand all of these enough that I would also be falling out of my chair. I'm sure that I would be if I was even aware of some of these cartridges you mentioned. I've never even heard of before, because they got to be just so like special and obscure, yeah,
and old. And that's what's in the coffee can.
What?
What's in the coffee can behind you?
Well, there's many of them.
Oh.
Some of them are 308 rounds. Some of them are. This was a that one.
That one there, yeah.
That's 75. I think it's 70 grain. 70 grain Hornady GMX 223 rounds to shoot hogs with.
Oh,
okay.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it works really good. So
for being
cans of stuff that you make a few, you make 500 rounds, you put them in a can, dig them out when you need them. So
for being such kind of a crazy site of ammunition, he really seems to know where. I mean, he immediately pointed out, oh yeah, that's that one there. I mean, you got that down. Oh yeah. But Jerry, you seem so. Just based on the ammo alone, I think that I'm correct in my assumption, but I'll throw it out there for you. You seem like the kind of guy we see you all the time with your race semi-auto pistols, your rifle, your shotgun, your even really nice super fast shooting revolvers. We see you with this stuff a lot. But you strike me as the kind of guy that also appreciates the classics too. Maybe something you wouldn't necessarily shoot in competition so much, but it's just a amazing piece of history. You got anything like that laying around? Like, what do you get into that stuff much, or do you not have time? Or
yeah, that would be the collecting part of it. I like the old military rifle stuff. Got a couple of the trapdoor Springfield 3040 Craig, 303 British rifles, the 03 Springfields, M1 Garands, 30 carbines, stuff like that. Just the classic military stuff that I saw when I was coming up as a kid. Watching TV. You had Rat Patrol and all the war movies and stuff. So you watch the Thompsons and the Garands, and so I've got quite an assortment of those.
Sure.
That I like to play with. So that's about as far back as I go as that trapdoor Springfield.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's good stuff there for sure. You know what I also like is the fact that, millennials like me get made fun of all the time for being, oh, you just like that gun because it was in Call of Duty. And I proudly say, absolutely, you are correct. I like it because it was in Call of Duty. And hearing Jerry say that he got some guns because he saw them in Rat Patrol makes me feel good.
It's
because
the same thing.
That was your Call of Duty back then.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all ever watched Rat Patrol. That was kind of back in the day. But
I know I've heard my dad talk about it.
I don't think I've caught an episode.
I can't say I have either, but
I'm gonna look it up though because it sounds fantastic.
See if it's see if you can get it on the Flicks or Hulu or something along those lines. What else you got here in your bag of tricks, Marco?
Well, I'm
one off the
I'm
list.
gonna ask one of yours, Jim.
Yeah, do it.
So Jim and I embarked. This was last year, I believe, on a reloading. A reloading escapade, a reloading experiment in self growth. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had never reloaded before.
We'd never reloaded before. I
Me
did find it interesting. Yeah, you either. I did find it interesting. There were parts of it I did like. I don't really see myself getting into it. Like
Fair.
getting into it.
Right.
I don't want to completely hate on reloading. Do you do it, Jerry, out of necessity, or do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy the tinkering and the load development and things like that, or is that just a means to an end?
It's both. I still enjoy shooting what I make.
Okay.
And playing with it. Yeah, I come in here and I'll have 10 different powders or something and grab a bullet and go play with it and see what I can get out of the gun. What recipe is going to give you the best accuracy, less flash, all that kind of stuff. But on the practicality side, at my level, it takes a lot of ammo.
Yeah.
So it's effective for me to do it. And I have the machine set up where I can load relatively quick and stay with it. So it keeps me out of trouble. Idle time, I don't want to have any idle time. So
yeah, next thing you know, you're pushing Broncos down the freeway at 60 miles an hour with an airboat.
If I would have been reloading, I wouldn't have been enticed to be into that mode. So.
Yep. I imagine though, if somebody like you, if you're reloading for yourself, how much you shoot, you got to have like basically the same factory setup that a regular ammunition company has. I mean, you have like fully automated. Oh, look at him, he's counting. He's counting.
I don't see but 11 loaders on the bench.
11 loaders on the bench.
Yeah, maybe 12.
So you basically are a factory.
Yeah, it might be 12 of them now. Yeah, I got a couple more coming. Yeah, I like to be independent. That's one of the things I kind of pride myself on. If I own it, I want to know how to work on it. I want to know everything about it. Because I'm Johnny on the spot. If I'm out competing and one of my firearms is not working right, I got to self-diagnose it. I don't have a squad of people. I'm not like a race Indy 500 driver. I step out of a car and I step into another one.
Sure.
I step out of that car. I got to fix it. So I got to know what's going to do, what cause and effect this is and that. So that comes from my mechanic background and wanting to know more about what I'm doing. That's one thing my dad kind of impressed on to me was the fact that if you own it, you better know how to work on it.
Yep.
My car stops on the side of the road. It's 2:00 in the morning. I want to have some kind of an idea how to get this thing going. I want to get back on the road. So same thing with shooting. If I'm at a match and something's not going right, I gotta fix it. I gotta fix it now. So,
well, that's gotta play into a bit of a lot of people talk about your competition shooting. They talk about your your loading and ammo, but then you're also like a gunsmith too. So then that's got to go into how you learn just all this stuff about the guns as well. Yeah. Man, it's it is fun. To your point, I think as well, the same enjoyment you get out of shooting ammo that you've loaded. There is something as well just uniquely satisfying about using equipment that you either know how to work on or that you have worked on. It's broken, you've gotten it fixed again. There's something that is uniquely satisfying about that. You don't feel the need to rely on other people, which can oftentimes either leave you not doing what you want to be doing because you're waiting on somebody, or then they just don't do it the way you would want to do it. And that happens all the time.
That's another thing. I'm not a patient guy. I want it now. I've got enough equipment in the garage where I have a milling machine and a lathe,
right,
and a welding machine, a bench grinder, and a couple other things. So I can go in there and do what I need to do to survive. Might not be the most precision manufacture, but it can get me over the hump, so I can get it done professionally. But most of the time, I can solve most of the problems. So
that's good.
All about being a mechanic,
Well, if we ever get in that scenario that we're talking about, where you need to, have your one gun to do it all, Jim, I'm going to take my shotgun and I'm going to Louisiana And Jerry, if you'll have me, I'll dig in with you. So
maybe if you have to choose one thing for this, theoretical apocalypse, maybe it's not even a gun at all. Maybe it's just an airboat.
Hey. It's good till the fuel run out.
That's true.
They do drink a lot of fuel. Those big engines, man, they're not many miles to the gallon.
Good to know.
They're running.
Good to know.
Jerry's already thought this through, Jim.
Right. Hey, how about this is related to working on your own stuff and, firearms maybe having issues or something when you're at a competition or shooting. What's the weirdest and most unexplainable malfunction you've ever had on the range or in a competition?
Well, I've shot so many rounds of ammo. Let me see, weird malfunction. That's a broad term. That can apply to just about any part of the gun.
Sure.
Or anything to do with ammunition. One thing I'll tell you is that when I shoot a competition, nothing that I'm going to do on that line I'm going to take lightly. Like every round of ammunition is run through a chamber check.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And I do a visual on it. Hornady, by the way, is one of my match sponsors, and all their ammunition is hand inspected.
Wow.
Which is really, they got ladies that'll sit there. They have a box of ammunition as big as this table, just as deep, and they'll put 5 or 6 rounds in their hand and they roll it like this. And if they see a blem or they see a scratch or they see anything that's not right, it goes in the co, and the other ones go in the box. So that's hand inspected already. I've seen enough ammunition problems since I've started shooting where I take none of this unless I certify it. It has to be good. I got caught the other day. I ran to a big box store. I had to buy I had to buy 1 box of ammo, and it had a bad round in it. Caught me in the match, jammed my pistol, almost cost me the championship. Ooh. I didn't have my drop gauge with me. I got caught, and there it was, a bad round of ammo, and it wasn't a Hornady round. But so stuff like that, I always proof all my equipment when I pick it up. I want the scope to be loose, so I'll check it. I want this to be loose. I check the stock. I check everything. Also, all my guns will have a witness mark on a screw, so I know it's in place.
Yeah.
So just common sense thing. Coming from a mechanic side, I want to look at a piece of equipment and it has to tell me that it's going to be good. I won't assume it.
Yeah.
So if you assume everything is good, you get online, you're gonna have something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Sling not mounted right, or I've seen slings fall off on people when they're running stages. Firearm hits the ground. Of course, it's not a good thing. So I don't want any of that to happen to me. So I don't take anything, and I have to certify every piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. Even before I make a run, I'll hand count all my ammunition on my person. 2 pistol mags, 2 rifle mags, shotgun equipment, and I'm going through all those checklists. So when they say go, it's going to happen correctly, and I don't have to second guess it.
That's a good.
It's just always the small things in life. It's not the big stuff. It's always the small things. Small things always get you.
It's true.
And that's the stuff that it's hard to do. Like, not hard to do, but you don't want to take the time to do it. Like, it's not the fun stuff. It's not the exciting stuff. It's kind of the, doing the paperwork, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to save you from getting bit.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks too who just have this there's kind of a mindset out there, and I don't know if there's a word for it or whatever, but there's kind of a mindset out there where you get something and it's a mechanical piece of equipment, and people just tend to assume, okay, I bought it, somebody put the work into building it, it will work. And you see it. I know we brought up vehicles a number of times, and obviously the mechanic background does come into this, but you see it with cars. I mean, you buy a car and you think, okay, I bought a car. Somebody put a lot of work into this thing, and I spent money on it, and so it's going to work. And then
that's called blind faith, Jim.
Right. Okay, it does have a word. Then you ask. I
use it all the time.
You ask them, like, well, when's the last time you changed the oil? And they're like, you have to change the oil, or I don't know, or how are your brakes doing? I don't know. I never check them. It's like, oh, well, that grinding sound you hear when you push on the brake? Cough, cough, Brittany. That's your rotors being worn away by the steel backing where there used to be pads and stuff like that. Or with a gun, they buy the gun, they pull it out of the box, they start shooting with it, and it's like, did you put any lubrication on it at all? Or, stuff like that. People tend to take these things for granted, and the more money you spend on these things too, it doesn't eliminate the fact they got moving parts. that there's consumables that go into them, oil, lubricant, ammunition, seals, whatever, and they do need maintenance and they can break.
Well, even like you're talking about, lubrication there, Jim, on like an AR or something like that. We were shooting ARs yesterday. I know, shocking that I was. So back when I bought my first AR, so
the one you sold, consequently.
Let the record show that I did own one.
At one point.
I took that thing out of the box. I didn't lubricate anything. I just shot it.
Right.
I didn't know though.
Yeah. Well, I spent money on it. It should work. Right. Yeah.
Well, I got a question. When your first AR, did you check the barrel, see if it had anything in the barrel before you shot your first round?
No. The answer to that question is no.
It's okay, Mark. You're not alone. It's okay.
I wanted to lie so badly, Jim.
That's some of that. I don't trust anything. Kind of a routine.
Yeah.
I'm one of them guys. I'm pretty boring. If I'm traveling somewhere, I just bought a new truck. Say they got an owner's manual about that thick. I'll bring it on a plane when I'm bored to death, and I'll read the owner's manual. As much as I don't want to read it, I got to read it.
It's a good read.
I'm just going to be sleeping anyway. Same thing with a firearm. Even though I have a bunch of them, there's always something different. So if I get an owner's manual, I kind of look through it. Same thing with you guys' scope. When you sell a scope or a set of bases, you have torque recommendations and stuff. And that's what a lot of guys don't read. They just go ahead and they just muscle everything to death on a scope mount and just crush the scope. Beautiful scope, and they ruined it. Just by being too much of a good thing on it, and just winching it down.
Yeah.
So as boring as it is, an owner's manual is your friend. And I'd rather spend time reading an owner's manual than reading some kind of a novel. Maybe I'm just that kind of guy, but I don't want to be caught not knowing what I need to know about my equipment or my environment. And when it's too late, I'm on the side of the road and it's not running. What do? I got to get the owner's manual out at 2:00 in the morning. And guess what? I didn't bring my flashlight with me. My battery dead. So I wish I would have read this in the daytime. But, there's endless possibilities. And I want to keep that a narrow spectrum so I can keep going and keep rolling and be as best I can.
Right.
Every company in the world at this very moment just said, my God, we found him. We found the guy that reads the owner's manual.
Yeah, we put all this work into these stinking owner's manuals, and there is somebody who reads them.
Hey, there's one.
There's one right there. Look at that.
He's covered up in them.
He's literally got him in his lap. Oh, that's good.
Read the owner's manual. Save time. Save yourself. I mean, it's just you buy this equipment, you want to know how to use it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty boring, but gets the job done.
It does. Marco, one thing that I wanted to, so I see us here on the old shot clock timer. We're still doing good. We're coming up on an hour, and I couldn't let this podcast go by without asking some more questions about a man named, and I originally thought, for some reason, I remembered hearing that his name was Mike, but his name was Richard. What's the last name again? It's Richard Davis. That's right, Richard Davis. Last time we talked about him a little bit on the last one. He is the guy who was one of the, or maybe the original. The story is, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. Did he get into Kevlar first, or was this ballistic nylon that police officers were wearing? And he was, in order to demonstrate how effective that it was, he shot himself with it, wearing it, and survived. And now at this point in time, he's shot himself well over like 200 times as a demonstration. Is that what it was? Was it Kevlar, or was it like a...
Yeah, Kevlar. Yeah, he pioneered Kevlar and proved the fact that blunt trauma will not kill you.
Right.
And that was the big debate. It was something like, remember when the atomic bomb, I don't know if you ever read about the atomic bomb, the first explosion, they thought it was going to react and the whole Earth was going to disappear because the reaction was going to continue.
Oh,
but
sure.
It didn't that way. Same thing with Richard Davis. They talked about body armor. Even if you had it over your heart and you caught, say, a 44 Magnum over your heart, the energy transfer through the tissue was going to rupture your heart and you were going to die anyway.
Right.
So Richard said, well, let's go see. So he went out and shot himself and recorded it. And he was brave enough and man enough to stand behind his product. And that's what made him who he was. He'd go to the police department with his second chance body armor and he'd say, oh, somebody bring me a gun. And a trooper, say, would come up with a 4-inch Python 357 Magnum. It didn't matter. He'd just go boom.
right?
Whose vest are you going to buy?
Mark,
So that man standing in his product, taking a beating. And do I recommend you do that? No, I can't recommend that. Richard, that was his selling point. And he was a great innovator in soft body armor. Saved a lot of people. I want to say 1,000 lives it saved us or more.
Wow.
He contributed to a lot of people continuing on, and he was really concerned about it, about officers surviving or individuals with body armor surviving the threat attack, whatever. So he was pretty innovative.
Mark and I just got done. It was yesterday, the day before. We were watching, in anticipation of this podcast, the old video where is on the news this guy, who is making this armor. The original video, like the first time he shot himself, it is uncomfortable to watch. You can tell he's uncomfortable doing it for the first time. And then, of course, subsequent times, you just kind of like, yeah, okay, bang, But,
right.
But the first time, you just see this and putting so much faith into this product, which at the time, Kevlar was not really, it wasn't anything anybody was using. And I remember even when you told us about this on the last podcast, I figured in my mind's eye, I was seeing a guy wearing like a big puffy thing, like this big vest that he had made out of Kevlar. The thing is like almost as thin as a t-shirt. I swear. I mean, it's all floppy. It's just like it looks like a baby bib or something, not very substantial, and he puts it on and then just bam.
Ugh. It's like you can tell he doesn't quite know exactly how it's going to turn out. As a viewer, I guess even knowing the end of the story.
Oh, it's like when you watch a movie that you know the ending of, but it's still it's exciting, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man.
I mean, the one thing that really caught my eye over the years while we shot at his competition in Central Lake, Michigan, he had a hard vest. I think he called it a hardcore vest, and it was made for door gunners, like on a helicopter that would take centerfire rounds, rifle rounds. And he had his father. Richard went out in the middle of the match. He stopped the match and he went out in front of everybody, and he stood on one foot. And his father shot him with a FN FAL, which is a 762 by 51 308.
Oh, no joke!
Center of the chest with a full metal jacket round. Several times, and Richard was standing there on one foot taking it. Pretty impressive.
Wow, that's some. That's some trust there. That's a father-son thing that I don't. I mean, some dads take their kids camping. Some dads shoot their son wearing a bulletproof vest. That's how they bond.
Would have been a good fella. We'd have been proud of him if he came from South Louisiana. He was kind of innovative.
Well, I can imagine.
You got, like you said, the trust. I mean, just even if you know you're gonna get hit in the vest, but
if I was wearing one of those, Mark, would you shoot me?
I'd do anything you ask, Jim.
I never recommend that anybody do that, and you can't recommend it. Of course,
absolutely.
Richard being a pioneer like he was, that's the way he sold his merchandise. You'd go, if he's in it, I think I could get in it. So marketing made a good product, marketed well.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Do not do this at home, folks.
No, at all.
Not at all. This is strictly for entertainment purposes. We're talking about this. This is not a recommendation to do it.
And also, Jim, actually, I wouldn't do that. I couldn't. I was joking.
I know. There's such a gigantic mental block that I couldn't do it. But it is absolutely phenomenal that what this guy created. And You said you had just tons of interesting stories. I mean, are the interesting stories around Richard Davis, is it just the fact that he was always basically getting shot?
Well, he was a great innovator in his time on how to apply technology of his era into protecting law enforcement or individuals from bullets. So it was just I guess I shot his matches for almost 20 years up in Central Lake. So you saw a lot of Richard Davis. It was always unexpected what he was going to do, and quite entertaining, I would say. He's a very colorful guy. That he saved a lot of lives.
That's
which
cool.
is really outstanding. You got to give him the credit. He saved a lot of people. So.
Absolutely.
I mean, just multifaceted. I mean, what a showman, and yet doing extremely important work.
Yeah. Now he didn't invent Kevlar, Kevlar was already a thing that he was sort of repurposing, or was he actually carrying on the development in a different way?
He pioneered it, and he showed the public and law enforcement that you could take rounds and not succumb to blunt trauma.
Okay, got it.
That was his fame, that you could actually take the rounds and not die internally from internal bleeding. So
Sure.
it was a kind of a moment for the step in it and do it. He saw it on his video.
that is pioneering to the max, indeed. Man, I can't imagine what it would be like to have that experience.
I don't even want to think about it.
No. But now you see people. I was watching another video that popped up, and they make all this bulletproof clothing now and all that stuff, and for rappers and famous people and whatever, and they literally wear a jacket now. And it's like you can just shoot it with a pistol, and it just bounces off.
Man, practical and fashionable.
Yeah. Do you have any of Richard's Kevlar stuff, Jerry?
I do. I have. It's all out of date. Kevlar has a life expectancy on it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It does eventually sort of degrade over time.
Something you got to be aware of. If you have a vest that has a service life, if you sweat in it a lot, it also deteriorates. And that's all standardized in testing now. So when you buy a product from any of the vest manufacturers, it'll come with a data sheet.
Yeah.
The life expectancy of and when it stops and when it doesn't stop. And
yeah.
So it's a well-tested product.
Another area where you probably want to read the manual, read the label,
Yeah, that's for sure. Some of the real hardcore rally cars and some of those like Dakar racing, vehicles and whatever. Actually, I can't really speak to Dakar and stuff, but I know I've seen in some rally vehicles and whatnot. They actually have Kevlar armor on the bottom of the vehicle, because otherwise, actually, it's funny, they kick up so much gravel from driving. You'll eventually, if you just have the steel exposed at the body of the car on the bottom, you'll eventually wear a hole. In that, I've been in a rally car where I was in the back seat and we're sideways and there's dirt flying everywhere, and I was like, whoa! And then I looked down at the ground and I could see daylight, and I was like, oh, there's a hole in the floor. And he's like, yeah, that got worn in after all the gravel.
Somewhat similar, Jim. The mini jet boats that I'm always trying to get you to build.
Right.
We'll put I believe a Kevlar, like not the bottom isn't Kevlar, but they've got like a coating or like a layer of it on the bottom of the boat. So when
so
you're hitting all
rocks
the
can
rocks,
bounce off of it. Yeah.
So anyway, build a mini jet boat.
There you have it. I bet you Jerry could build a mini jet boat and I bet you could build a mini jet boat for $3.28.
Give him 10 coat hangers and a acetylene torch.
That'd be quite interesting to watch. Man, Jerry, it's always interesting to talk to you. I know my only last question was I'm curious. You got any records on the horizon that you're trying to break these days, or are you gonna let that sort of just come to you as it does, or any big trick shots you're thinking of trying out one of these times?
Yeah, we've got 2 or 3 trick shots coming up. I hope long range air rifle shot. I want to shoot a shotgun slug out of the air.
Oh,
with an AR.
Okay.
And there's a record speed shooting record. It's not official, but I want to try to do that with the new 940 Mossberg, the JM Mossberg shotgun. I want to try to beat that with that Mossberg. So some of that bullet trap I was shooting in the other day.
Yeah.
With a lot of gun shooting, so I've been training up a little bit on that, keeping the finger excited and putting in range.
That's right. You don't have a separate hyperbaric chamber or something next to your bed at night that your shooting finger sleeps in, do you?
No, that's an idea, though.
You sleep in the regular atmosphere, and meanwhile, the shooting hand gets really nice treatment.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, Jerry, it's awesome talking to you. This has been yet another extraordinarily interesting discussion with you, and I think if anybody learned anything, well, I shouldn't say anybody learned anything from this. If you learned a ton of stuff from this, I'm sure, but if you take one thing away, I think it's that if you ever feel like you can't afford to try and do something, or you want to do something but you're not quite sure how, it seems as though Jerry's the person to talk to because he's probably done it for less than $5 and with some coat hangers and some heat applied. So that's pretty cool to know. You're a no excuses kind of guy, Jerry.
Cost effective.
Cost effective, and it works just like just like all your stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool, Jerry. Any last calls from you on this one to close her out?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. It's always fun to shoot the breeze a little bit, and tell a few stories about the old days. So
absolutely,
always follow the gray hair guys.
That's a hell of a good tip.
Duly
right
noted.
there.
That might be the best tip of all. Duly noted.
Jerry, thanks for the time.
Yes.
And always super enlightening, super fun. Can't thank you enough.
Yep.
And can't wait for the next one.
Hopefully we see you again sometime in person soon. Stay safe down there. Maybe eventually we'll get you in person again. But
all right. Appreciate you having me, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
all right.
Take
Thanks
care.
again.
Bye.
Bye, Jerry. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.